So I want to make an argument that for some of these funds, we don't need to apply them only to direct services to students, more tutoring, more summer school. I'll get there. The research on teacher agency has three major components. And the first is collaboration. When teachers have time to tell their stories and discuss their practices, agency goes back up. Their effort increases and thus their impact increases. So how could we use some of this fund to build better collaboration opportunities for teachers? Could we be creative in figuring out ways to build collaboration, to really to invest in professional learning communities, for example, to build better opportunities for teacher share sessions? Because when teachers have chances to tell their stories and discuss their practices, it rebuilds agency. And teachers who have high levels of agency get better outcomes for students. We know that. And as Peter alluded to, there's a lot of people who are surveying teachers right now, including NEA, one of the unions. An NEA member survey says that 28% of teachers will not return this year. If we lose 28% of the teachers in the state of California, where would we get the replacements? How many people would we need to hire out of field emergency if we don't keep the people we have? The second thing that shapes and reshapes teacher agency is feedback. I did not say evaluation, feedback. Where are the peer coaches? This is an opportunity to use funds to hire coaches to support teachers as we return to in-person schooling. Don't discount that ongoing coaching as a way to provide teachers feedback, improve their instructional practices, design some professional learning or co-learning together, and actually impact student learning. I think mostly what we're hearing is, let's get some tutoring, let's get some summer school. But let's be a little bit more innovative than that. Some districts have been wanting to have peer coaches available for a long time. We have a 2.5-year window, as Peter said. What if we use this time to really grow the teacher expertise through some really powerful coaching? And in doing so, we save the people we already have, and we build their agency and their sense of accomplishment. The third is around success. Knowing you had an impact builds your agency. I had a conversation with one district, and they're asking if, can we use this fund to hire an additional vice principal? It seems reasonable to say yes, that would be something we could do with all of this money, is have another vice principal who could spend more time helping teachers see their successes, who could have more time for restorative practices, who could have more time for the services that we all know, the plan fatigue, the design, the supervision, all that stuff. And what if, as a result of hiring another administrator, teachers actually got honest, growth-producing feedback and knew that they were having an impact? So let's not limit the conversation to direct services to students. Let's look at indirect services that also impact learning. Can we build better collaboration opportunities for teacher? Can we build some peer coaching? Can we have some administrators have actual time? There are reports of teachers who have not had honest evaluations in several years because the administrators are simply too busy. And that is all destroying teacher agency. So I leave that to you to think about. How could we use some of these funds to accomplish some of our long-term aims that we've been trying to realize for a long time? What if we focused on the power of small wins, and we got the coaches and the leaders and the collaboration, and we started to rebuild that teacher agency, started to keep people in the roles that they have and feeling really good about their roles and not wanting to quit? Then some of the other things, the direct services, would be provided by people who have histories in our districts, rather than spending our time trying to hire all kinds of new people to backfill the positions because everybody left. I do want to comment on summer school. Summer school is, quote, a fail. Summer school has no better learning. I mean, you get 6 weeks of extra time, and it has virtually no influence on whether or not kids learn. Why is it that summer school, 6 extra weeks of time to learn, has virtually no influence on learning? It's no better than letting the kid grow up for a year. No teacher effect here. And when you read the research on summer school, and it surprises some people, it's because the focus is on remediation. And when we move to remediation, we see slowing down and isolated skills and somewhat boring lessons. And students believe they are being punished because they have to go to summer school. And if you show up not wanting to be there, not thinking you're going to learn and feeling punished, you are immune to so much of the instruction that's provided. So if we think about that, Aaron, you're going to have to mute because I'm getting feedback. Sorry, I can't do it for you. If we really think about that, how could we do better services for summer school? What if instead of I'm a drill and kill teacher and I only do the skills for summer that kids are missing, what if we built an enrichment program in the summer? What if we had a writer's camp? What if we had a science camp? What if we had all kinds of enrichment opportunities where lots of students came to summer rather than a remediation where students perceived it to be punishment? And what if, as part of an agreement for summer school, teachers got 1 hour of professional learning each day that they could try out with the students they're having in summer school classes? And what if we did job-embedded professional development for the entire summer, where we designed learning experiences based on the priorities in the district and really operationalized and really implemented and got people practicing on the same day they learned? And if we had coaches to add to that, imagine an hour of professional learning, opportunity to practice, feedback from someone who knows a lot about teaching and learning. Could we actually change practices while providing services to students? Now, tutoring has a strong effect. Tutoring works. Volunteer tutors work, peer tutors work. Tutoring has a strong effect if the tutors know what the learning target is. That means we have some assessment information to know what the kid needs to learn. If the tutors develop good relationships with the learners. To paraphrase Rita Pearson, young people don't learn from old people they don't like. That's the same with tutors. So we have to help our tutors understand, how do you develop relationships with young people? There was a study done, 100 years of intervention research. The number one finding after 100 years of studies on intervention, specifically in reading, was the number one factor that made the intervention work was the relationship between the adult and the student. So if tutors are providing these interventions, they have to work on relationships. And the third thing in the tutoring research, are the tutors actually getting the students to practice? Because sometimes we see the tutors doing the work for the kid. It's not a homework help. Here's what we're learning. We have a great relationship, and I'm getting you to do the practice. You are actually engaged in deliberate practice under my eye, under my watch, but I'm not trying to introduce new content to you. The tutoring is about, here's the learning target, we have a great relationship, and I'm helping you practice. And when you make errors or mistakes or have misconceptions, I don't tell you the answer, I help you figure it out. I guide you along the way. If we could train the tutors to do that, we will get that effect size, that very high effect size. So where am I at in my thinking? How do we add, whether it's leaders or coaches, to support the teachers in really good practices? How do we design a summer program this year and next year that looks very different than what we've done in the past as a remediation program? And if we're going to hire tutors, do we actually support the tutors to do the things that are in the evidence base that says, here's what makes tutoring programs, volunteer and otherwise, work? But my big message is we have to change the narrative from learning loss. There's all this talk about the COVID slide, the gap year, the learning loss. And as soon as that becomes the narrative, we lower our expectations for students. As you know, in our state, there's a big discussion going on about what standards should be prioritized next year and which standards should we throw out. And there's a lot of pushback on that. How do we make sure we don't say students are going to learn less this coming year than they did 2 years ago? How do we focus on acceleration? And when you look at the research on acceleration, it has some of these points. Can you identify skills that have yet to be learned? This is a really important one. What tools do you have to assess students? Make sure you have good assessment tools. That's part of the legislation, and it's there for a really good reason. We have to know what kids still need to learn. What is the unfinished learning or unrealized potential that they've had? And how do we know? And when you look at the evidence on instructional minutes, on average, 40% of instructional minutes are spent on things students already know. We do not have time to spend 40% of our minutes on things kids already know. You look back to the research, on average, 9 to 13% of instructional minutes, students are waiting for something to happen. So if you have 40% of the minutes on things they already know, and another 10 on average of time they're waiting, 50% of the instructional minutes are not related to the learning students need to do. So if we have really good assessment information, this is what you need to learn. And we design lessons that way. Second point in acceleration. How do you provide key aspects of knowledge in advance of the instruction? We have learned so much about technology. Can we provide interactive videos? Can we provide learning management systems that get students to engage with background knowledge, vocabulary, concept development before they're in the instructional event with their teacher? Third part, how do we increase the relevance that students have? Is it cultural competence? How do we make sure students are seeing it as relevant learning? Are we making sure that the tests and the tasks that they're doing are relevant to them, that help them develop their identity and their criticality? And next, rather than slowing things down, how do we create active, fast-paced learning experiences that cycle back through? Rather than 4 weeks on a skill, how do we cycle through them in a faster way? And the last part of the acceleration research says we have to work on students' confidence, not just their competence or skills. So let's invest in some social and emotional development of our young people and help them rebuild this confidence, help them rebuild this sense of self. My argument around teacher agency is the same for principal agency and student agency. By and large, people do not believe right now that their efforts are resulting in things that matter. And that goes for our students as well. So how do we rebuild their confidence? How do we reset their norms? The way I say it right now, what are you willing to do to help the students in your system reestablish their relationship with learning? Because a lot of our students have a fractured relationship with learning. So what are we willing to do to build that confidence so students have a strong relationship with learning? That's acceleration rather than remediation. Last thing I'll say, there's actually research pre-COVID on credit recovery programs and the components that are necessary. If you have high schoolers who need credit recovery, there are actually inventories of evidence-based decisions that you make around credit recovery. And one of these is 20,000 course takers, 4 years, 46 high schools. That's the first study. There's evidence that we can use to design credit recovery programs for students.